Our first agenda item is HB 411. And last time we talked about gathering more information. And I talked with Chris, sustainability coordinator for Salt Lake City, who was very helpful to me. And I was going to summarize the things that I learned, but then he put me in touch with Lisa Yoder, who's with us right now. She is the sustainability coordinator for Summit County, and she is deeply involved in this process. And so rather than getting it secondhand from me, I think it would be much better to have it firsthand from Lisa. And the goal is, I sort of met with Lisa briefly a little bit ago, but just so you all know what the goal is to have Lisa help us understand why Summit County, why the leaders of Summit County are interested in HB 411, and a little bit more about what the process and the timeline and the costs look like. And we've talked about maybe 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes for Lisa, and then some questions. And maybe Lisa, if we also had questions along the way, I'm sure you'd probably be fine if we asked one.
Absolutely.
And then I'd just like to, once we kind of understand things better, because we wanted to be in an information gathering phase, we were all pretty in the dark last time, frankly. And I learned a lot, and I'd like all us to learn something. Then we'll move on to more of a discussion, and I will structure that when we get to it. So Lisa, take us away, please.
All right. Well, thank you, Darren, for having me here. It's nice to meet you all, and thank you for your time to learn a little more about the Community Renewable Energy Program. That's the result of the HB 411 bill passage. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you and walk through a couple documents as we talk, because I think it may be helpful than just to hear a bunch of words. Well, before I do that.
Is that possible? Is screen sharing enabled for guests?
Yes, we tried it.
Great.
Okay. So I hope it'll
should be working.
Okay.
Thank you.
But before I do that, I'll back up and say that Summit County Council has an environmental stewardship goal, and it's one of their key priorities. Of their top 5 priorities is environmental stewardship, which means a lot of things to a lot of people. But mainly what it came down to is we've already seen the effects of climate change and droughts and less ability to grow hay for ranchers in the county. There's lower river flows. We're seeing a lot of impacts from a changing climate already. And one of their key goals is to reduce emissions 80% by the year 2050 for the entire county. Meanwhile, the council has charged me with reducing emissions of county operations 80% by 2040. So the best way, or one of the best ways to reduce emissions that's readily available right now, is to switch to renewable energy. And we have the solar technology, it's widely available. The price actually comes in cheaper than gas and coal-fired power now. This has been a recent change in the economics in the last 5 years. And so we have been working with Rocky Mountain Power and the Public Service Commission and the Division of Public Utilities and the Office of Consumer Services, all the entities that regulate the utility or inform the utility, to create the HB 411 bill that was passed to create this program. So now I'll switch to the document, I hope. So just to summarize the program that was enacted by that legislation, it allows communities like Summit County, like Salt Lake City, like perhaps yours, who want renewable energy to be able to obtain it. And there had to be some changes in the legislation so that the utility could actually provide it in that kind of capacity. So the community goals is that it gives options to customers. Now, besides them having just the ability to buy a couple blocks of wind credits or subscriber solar that's already sold out, people can actually get 100% renewable on their electricity bills as a standard option. So this program through a number of steps yet, will pave the way so that every customer in that community has the option of obtaining 100% renewable energy if they want it. So part of building this program was that the participating communities share the cost with the Public Service Commission of developing the program and getting it in place. One of the main things is that there has to be ratepayer protection, and that is that no costs of entering this program get passed on to any non-participating communities. So we've figured that out, and that's part of the Public Service Commission's involvement. They evaluate the costs and how it's distributed, and definitely no costs get shifted to non-participants. Renewable energy on the grids helps maintain reliability on the grid. It gives on the electricity delivery grid. It gives one more supply of electricity to the grid to offset some of the peaks in the summer load in the late afternoon when the solar is peaking its production, and when we're peaking our usage with air conditioning in the summer especially. And then it also helps rural investment. So for example, on the project that the county just contracted for in partnership with Salt Lake City, Park City, Utah Valley University, Vail Resorts, and Deer Valley Resorts. So there's 6 entities. We all pooled our consumption numbers, and we are in the process of buying the power from a newly constructed solar farm in Tooele. That will be online in 2023 so that all of these entities can have net 100% renewable energy. And we've done that. The cost that we will incur, I believe, is 2.3% higher than normal electricity. And that's because of various requirements of Rocky Mountain Power and the Public Service Commission. The actual cost of solar is cheaper than gas and coal. So when this solar farm is built in Tooele, it provides some jobs, especially during construction, and then a few to maintain the solar system afterwards. And then back to our ultimate goal is to reduce emissions and help protect the environment. So we maintain our air quality and we keep a nice pristine, we love it up in Summit County, as I'm sure you love it where you are, and up in the Uintas there, so that we can all help work keeping the air clean. So that's kind of the background of the program. Does anybody have any questions there?
Yeah, just a clarifying question, Lisa. This is very helpful. That 2.3% increase is to, I mean, is it Park City? Is it Summit County? Who's the entity that is paying for that increase? Is it the individual ratepayers, or is it the county or the city?
I'm glad you asked, Quinn. That's because I kind of confused 2 things here, I'm sure. That 2.3% will be paid by the entities themselves because it's for our power. So that's for Summit County government operations. And that's a separate deal from what we're talking about today, the community renewable energy program. So the county wanted to achieve its net 100% renewable energy. And we can do that. We can control our expenditures and we can buy it for ourselves. HB 411 allows community members, entire communities, to achieve it. So I apologize for confusing that. And that's not a cost that residents would see. So I'll get to that in a minute. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I will have more questions as we get to the end, but I'll let you continue.
Okay, great.
May I ask a question on the difference between net and gross renewable energy? Can you help me understand that, please?
Yes. Net is, so we quantify the amount of electricity we use in a year and say it's 100,000 kilowatt hours. Then we purchase $100,000 or 100,000 kilowatt hours from this renewable power plant. Whereas, so it's a net, it's in that particular year. Yeah, so there's a kind of, we balance it up afterwards. You can't really buy 100% renewable real time, obviously, because the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining at night.
Yeah, that was
So
my
you
question.
buy
Because you have base loads that have to run, and typically solar's taking off peak demand during certain areas of the day, and so that helps me. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's a total aggregate quantity of kilowatt hours we purchase equal to the amount that we use. And that's what it means by net 100%.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else before I move on? Okay, then let's see. Okay, so how the program works. At this point in time, 22 communities had adopted resolutions like Orem did to pursue net 100% renewable energy by 2030. The purpose of that common resolution is so that we go as one entity and work with Rocky Mountain Power to have the same amount, because of all the filing and regulation. They can't do like 25% for this customer and 30% for that customer and 90% for this customer in different dates. So currently we're working on a governance agreement that your community would see, that if you stay in, that says we all operate at one. Here's what we agree to as far as voting and costs and process. And then we continue as one unit and go through the process with specific exit points. So if this is being shown, do you see a purple bar across the middle of the screen? Okay.
We're only seeing your Word document still. What you'll need to do is stop sharing your Word document, hit that red button, and then hit the screen share button again and click on the screen you want to share.
Okay. Oh, where did that go? Thank you for the help there. How's
Yeah,
that?
no problem.
Okay. So we're in the formation phase on the side of the screen, the program formation stage in the purple bar. And that's where we're trying to figure out how all these entities will vote and operate and function together, how we share the costs, how we will ultimately contract with Rocky Mountain Power. So right now, and in this time, we're also getting an estimate of the cost that would be incurred by all of the communities participating. Once that governance agreement is hammered out and signed by the communities, that's when we would expect, that's when we need a commitment of funds to pay for the legal and expertise to design the rates, to file the application with the Public Service Commission, and to have any kind of consultants to help us develop the actual rate that customers will pay. So we design the rate, or at least we propose a rate. It goes to the Public Service Commission. They review it. They may come back with some changes or whatever. It may need more legal review. The legislation also states that we pay for the Division of Public Services Commission's role in this. I don't know exactly what that is, but there are some costs to develop to get this program approved and set a projected rate that customers pay. So up for this part, the communities participating would have to agree to share in the cost of actually implementing the program. So say they've signed the agreement, yes, and now they share in the costs and help design the rates. And then there's another exit point, or stay-in point after the Public Service Commission approves the rates and the structure. Then the communities have the estimated price that customers will pay. Now, they can't give an exact price because we don't know how many customers are going to stay in or stay out. But it will cost money to find out approximately what our customers, what the rates would be for all of the customers in your community. So that's the phase 2 costs. Actually, they're 1 and 2 costs go together. And we're trying to work it out so that it's split. The costs are incurred in 2 different budget years because we know everybody's struggling with the results of the pandemic and its impact on revenues. So then if the projected costs are agreeable to your community councils, then that community would adopt an ordinance, and that ordinance states that their community is 100% renewable power, and that every customer, residential, irrigation, commercial, all the different customer classes are 100% renewable unless they opt out. And this is where the final costs come into the community. And those costs are specific to the size of the community to mail out 2 mailers with the electricity bill, or in addition to the electricity bill, that show the customers, if you want renewable energy, here's exactly what you will pay on your bill as compared to what you would pay standard. So you get to see both of those numbers. And yet there's a certain period of time that every customer can opt out. Then that's when the program begins. After that waiting period, the opt-out period, then Rocky Mountain Power knows exactly how much power they have to build resources for. And then they begin the process of building up the renewable resources to meet the demands of the customers.
Lisa,
Yes.
just a quick question on that. So I see these estimated costs, and those are the total cost estimates divided by the number of communities, or is that total per community?
That's total for all community. That's total for the program.
And then it would probably be prorated by like population size or something?
Yeah, so that's perfect because that takes me to the next slide.
Thank you.
So I'll stop this one. Oops. It's good. I'm getting a lesson in how to shift on the screen. Okay, now do you see a spreadsheet?
Yep.
Okay. So given the draft, where we are right now is we figured that the best way to split the costs is partly by population and partly by electricity load. We don't want one voting community like, say, Salt Lake City with the biggest population to have the biggest impact or decisions in any kind of decision making. So we're proposing that the population and electric load be split and prorated, and then that proration accounted to each community to share in the cost, if that made any sense. We estimate that the total cost for phase 1 and 2 is $700,000. And then when we prorate that out for the communities, given the formula that we're proposing, this is not final, it looks like that Orem's share would be $89,442, hopefully split in 2 years. And let's see, I can probably make it bigger. That might help.
Can you just repeat that, Lisa, and tell us where you're taking that number from?
So if we go to this line item that's Orem, it's based on a population and then the percentage of the electricity load. That means that, and when that weighted calculation is made, it indicates that 8.8% of the cost allocation would be borne by Orem versus 28% by Salt Lake City, or Summit County. For us, it comes in about 3%.
So it looks like Orem has greater percentage of the population pie, but Ogden has less. However, they consume more electricity. Therefore, that's why there's the 100,000 for Ogden and 89,000 for Orem projected, even though Orem's population is greater.
Correct.
Okay.
Because we've got industrial customers, and some communities are heavily industrial and not residential, and some are more residential. So again, this is proposed, it's all being worked out, and it hasn't been presented to leadership in the communities yet. But after many discussions, we think this is a fair way to do it. And then everybody gets their vote based on, I think it's that allocation. But anyway, however that pencils out, the bottom line is, we've been told, we don't have firm prices, but we're told that roughly the costs before each community pays to notice their residents is about $700,000 divided by all the participants at that prorated value. And you can see how the cost is shared among the participants, in the governments of the participants. So like Castle Valley, it's $420, which is a lot to their budget, undoubtedly. So I guess, what other questions do you have? Do you have questions at this time?
Could you just talk about a timeline? When is the next decision point?
Well, we have to come up with that governance agreement. So when that draft gets circulated to the legal departments at the communities, in it will describe how the costs are to be shared. And that's when we'll refine the cost as well as the terms of the agreement, because each community may have some different needs. So the next decision point is whether the community signs the governance agreement or not. And that would commit them to the funds. And so we're hoping to have that by the end of this year. And then filing with the whole program, with the projected rate structure. We were hoping to submit that to Public Service Commission by this coming summer of 2021. Filing approval hopefully would be by the end of 2021, so we could share some of the costs in 2021, and then the filing approval in 22, in which hopefully the rest of the costs would be incurred. And then at that time, you would know that then your customers would know how much the electricity would cost. And then you would have just the noticing costs in 2022.
So Lisa, just to be clear on that, the 89,000 would be due at what point? At the end of this year?
No, that wouldn't be due until 2021, early in 2021, maybe June. And then, I'm looking, 2021, and then the rest of the 89,000 would be due in 2022.
But just to be clear, it would be committed by end of December, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be committed when the agreement is signed.
Committed at the end of the year, due in the summer, and then
Due later as well.
the
The payment is spread out.
payment is spread out. So is that 89? Is that the total payment across all of the waves of this, or is that the first wave?
That's the total across all of the waves, including the noticing, the issuance of 2 notices.
Okay, and do you know what the first wave payment would look like for a community like Orem?
Let's see, looks like it'd be roughly, we're estimating roughly 31,000. Say
Okay.
35,000 for the first.
And is there a reason why you guys chose opt out instead of opt in at the end?
Well, that was the legislature's agreement. And the reason is because people will participate at a greater rate if they're opt-in and have to make a, have to think and make a decision to opt out. So,
Well,
it's been-
opt out will get more people than opt in.
right. And that's the benefit of the program. The more people that are in and the more communities that stay in, the lower the price goes for everybody. And in fact, the lower it goes for the participating community governments. As people, if any of these communities drop out, or as they do, then we have to restructure the cost sharing to pick up the cost burden. So that's why it's important that we get the cost agreement included in the governance agreement as the next step. Because if people are unwilling to incur the cost, if governments are, then we can't, we all have to budget for the cost, so we all have to know who's in of the communities. The customers can all opt out later.
Right, I understand that.
Okay.
If it's all right, Darren, I just have a big picture question to ask at this stage, and then maybe we could get into other details if necessary. So, Lisa, I'm on this committee because I care a great deal about renewable energy. I think that there are all kinds of reasons why Orem City should do this. Right, that's my personal belief. I even think that we should do it if it's costly, because I think that there are broader issues at stake that I care deeply about.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if we were to make this case in front of a city council that didn't care about renewable energy, and that they didn't have a renewable energy goal for environmental reasons. Is there a case to be made here that this is the most cost-effective option in the long run? So is there a case that we should join this as a city on economics only? Or how would you present the case for and against this to a city that is trying to decide and weighing its values and weighing its costs? That's
a good question, because obviously many communities are going through that assessment. There's some very good reasons to proceed with this. One is that it brings investment to communities who would host the renewable energy sites. So it brings tax revenue to mostly rural communities. We have required that all of these renewables be sited in Utah or just adjacent, to a state adjacent, as long as the price is cost effective. So tax revenue and jobs, not a lot, but some. It helps transition the grid to renewables, which is needed to offset the emissions from the coal-fired power plants and others. It's a clean source. It's readily available by the sun. We're the 6th sunniest state in the country, and we're not utilizing it very effectively. So it's a free source of power from that regard that has no long-term side effects as the other powers do. And I think that the main thing that appealed to many of our local communities is it gives customers a real choice. They don't have to take the power. They have every opportunity to opt out. And some of the communities just wanted to make it available because their constituents wanted it. So it gives them that choice. Now, why not to do it? Certainly the cost. And there's a cost to find out if it's worth staying in. But if a community doesn't stay in, they don't know what they're going to lose, right? They won't know the cost that they could have gotten it for. for their residents, where some want it and certainly some don't. Well, the ones who don't want it don't have to buy it. But yeah, cost is the biggest reason, the biggest stumbling block for communities, and that's definitely understandable right now, for sure.
What is the likely rate? I mean, I know it's sort of impossible to say, but if you were, I mean, will there be much of a difference in rates between people who opt for renewables and people who don't?
It depends on what you consider much. And of course, we can't know that. I can tell you that, let's see, was it 3 years ago, we did an extensive study with the consultant, and they found, and this was before the renewable rates came down even further, that it could be in the neighborhood of a 7% increase, but we think that's quite high because even at that time we were using high numbers. I don't know, I don't want to speculate, but it will be very clear on the bill and a very clear comparison. So people will have that, you know, if it's important to somebody and they want to pay 2-3% more, they will. And otherwise they don't have to.
So I'm just going to try to play back what I heard, and I want you to correct me, Lisa, if I'm missing some things here. What I heard was that there are a number of good reasons to do this. There are collective reasons in terms of supporting the Utah economy. There are clean air reasons, right? There are broader environmental sustainability reasons.
Yes.
And that this helps support all of those values. And the final reason might be that communities might have constituents that actually care about this choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing that in a place like Orem, there would be a slice of constituents that would choose renewable energy, and that they might even be willing to pay a small premium for it. We've collected some anecdotal data on that, and we think that particularly if it was opt-out, that we'd have a decent number of people that would do that, and I think some people would appreciate it and that they would celebrate that. If a community didn't share those values, right,
Mm-hmm.
then they might be able to make the case that $89,000 in a very tight budgetary environment sounds like a lot. And we're not willing to put that money down right now or make that kind of initial commitment at this stage, even if it's only the 31K, you know, and we can still opt out. That might sound like a little bit. And so it would require a bit of a consensus in city leadership that these are some things that we're interested in exploring, and that we ultimately think our customers and our citizens in our city would value. Did I say that about right?
Yes, you did. And what you did was highlight to me a consideration that those who don't want it are paying the same taxes as those who do want it, and the customers who don't want it, the residents. And so it really comes down to, is the governing body willing to make that decision to invest in something that some of their constituents don't want, but some do. And if it's a value to the community council and the community members, then, you know, they have to make that call and adopt the ordinance later.
Thank you very much. We do need to, so I want to continue this discussion, but that's been very helpful, Lisa.
Good.
You've helped restate a lot of what I learned from Chris. I would add a couple of small things, but they're not important. But on that note, right, and we've just highlighted, okay, ultimately this is a choice of community leaders. Jeff, I'm sorry, you're a community leader. I wonder, I wonder, Jeff, if we could just hear from you on this. And, obviously a lot of people on the Zoom call are kind of favorably inclined towards this.
Sure.
Also understand that there are concerns, right? And one concern is cost, another concern is the opt-out thing. But we also, I think, so can you help us understand what you're hearing? I mean, just kind of in a straightforward way without judgment, we're not going to say, wow, that's the stupidest thing he could have said. Well, maybe we will if you say something really stupid. But yeah, maybe you can tell us, Jeff, what you're hearing here, because what you're hearing might be a little bit different than what we're hearing. And honestly, I just really want to know, I really honestly want to know what you're hearing. I am a guy who can see all sides of an issue. I really can. And I love to listen to all sides. And so can you help me hear what you're hearing?
Sure. So, it would be unique for a politician to say something stupid in today's climate. Lisa, thank you so much for this presentation. This has been very helpful. And thank you for sharing that. And I wonder if you would be willing to share that with me, if you could email the information that you shared with us today. And I would love to share that with the rest of the city council and the city manager and the mayor as well. Honestly, Darren, the biggest concern, I think I'm hearing the same thing that you are, is why would we not do this? I'm thinking that's kind of what you all are thinking. The biggest concern, the money, as you look at it, is really not that much money. From what Lisa has presented today, it doesn't seem to be a lot of money. And so the biggest concern from the city council when this vote was taken was financial, which I think Lisa has addressed that very well today. But the even bigger concern on that was the opt-out. And so it's a process of education that I think would need to happen, so that I guess the concern was that the city council might feel like people would be kind of stuck if they didn't opt out in time, if they didn't want to do that. And so, I think there would be some ways of education and bringing people up to speed on what we're really talking about, what this means to the city, what this means to the individuals and to the families, and then assess where do we go from here with that. I understand, and I appreciate also, Quinn, thank you for your thoughtful questions and just to help clarify a lot of things. So I feel like this is a really helpful discussion, and I'm not sure how much the general populace in Orem is aware of the options. I know there's been some discussion, obviously this committee being very proactive and very engaged in the stewardship. This is probably right on the top of things that you would be concerned about. So, I would be interested, if there's some way of polling or, just some way of just kind of reaching out and taking the temperature, Has anything like that been done in other communities, Lisa, that you're aware of?
I don't know if anyone's done an actual survey. I know that in all the public meetings that our council has had leading up to this, and this has been a 5-year process, trust me. We've had no dissent in our 100% renewable goals. I would also like to share that part of the program requires a low income component. So each community may create their own low income program, or collectively we create a program template that each community can adopt however they want to address the low income needs of their community. whether it's an energy efficiency program or some way to access the renewable energy. And then thirdly, we will be engaging in a lot of public outreach and education. We want, at least in Summit County, I want the residents to know what this is. I want their support when it comes time for the council to adopt an ordinance. I believe, well, I know our community wants it, but people need to know about it. They need to know it's available. And then, like you said, most importantly, they need to know to opt out if they don't want it. So we expect to be doing a lot of education and outreach with social media, with mailers. It's an added expense, but that actually is part of my job anyway. So I'll be doing that. But it might be a new expense for Orem. So that's definitely a valid consideration.
Good. And you know, that was one of the things that was brought up is, you know, the low income, older people who are on a fixed income and are already struggling to pay their power bill are probably those that would have the greatest challenge of knowing that they need to opt out of this if they felt like they couldn't afford it or didn't want to do it or whatever. And so in consideration for their situations, you know, that was another concern that came up. Well, but I would love if you would please forward this information. I would love to share it and maybe even have you take some time at a city council meeting not too far down the road.
I would much prefer to have some time to share it than to just hand it off. Because,
well, that would be a much better delivery system.
I'm sure you would do just fine, but the numbers, I don't want these numbers quoted as hard fact. They're all still,
right.
This is our
loose interpretation.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'd be happy to do that. And we are definitely addressing how to educate the public, and hopefully as one common unit, these 22 communities will have kind of a template of marketing tools that we will share with all the communities who can use them or not. And this all has to be approved by the Office of Consumer Services, whose main responsibility is advocate for the consumer. So we definitely want everybody agreeable and no one harmed. So we'll be sharing that with everyone who remains in the program.
Okay. Can I ask one other question? Have you had other cities, other communities that have been feeling like they were leaning towards not participating?
I think there's one or two who are questioning it. Yeah, one is a very small community and I'm not sure. I think Ogden's vote was a split vote, like 3-2, if I remember right. Yeah.
Okay.
But it benefits everybody if we can move. I mean, if consolidating this is somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 1/3 of all Rocky Mountain Power customers in the state. This is a big impact to the grid in a very positive way for the future. So we're hoping that communities will stay in, and the staff that are working on it are very willing to help, you know, communicate and share materials as we go forward.
Jeff, can I just ask one quick question, and then Darren,
Sure.
I know you probably have an agenda to get to here. Imagine that money was off the table. So imagine that somebody who was supportive of this in the community stepped up and donated $89,000 to the city if they would do this. I don't have that person in mind, unfortunately, but imagine it for a moment. Do you think the council would still object?
I think the bigger concern, honestly, Quinn, was the opt-out. The opt-out was the big dark cloud. I mean, money was a concern, but looking at this, I really don't feel like that's a huge amount of money for such an investment. So I think that is the number one concern.
Can I just address something I saw Sarah put in the chat box?
Please.
Quickly, sorry. This will not retire any coal assets. This will be built new in addition to what's on the grid. So there's already plans in the 2019 IRP to retire certain coal-fired power plants. Rocky Mountain Power is doing that with or without this program. We have their full participation, and this will not retire assets. This is going to be new construction built in addition to the existing grid. Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much for your time. And maybe Darren, can I get in touch with you how do I get scheduled on the council? Who should
Yeah, I can be a liaison between you and Jeff to figure that out. Sure.
Okay. Well, if that's all, I'll wave off and let you do your business.
Okay.
Okay.
That was really
thank you all.
awesome, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you very much. Good night.
Night. So, and thank you, everyone. Yes, that was so helpful. I guess I would also say, so first of all, I love the idea of a survey, right? I'm a survey guy, Jeff. This is what I do. And so if Orem, Matt, were willing to share email addresses or even physical addresses with me, that I could do a very quick survey, because, we can do surveys on social media and we can do surveys on the tools that Orem's developed, but to really be a true survey, we would need it to be more comprehensive than that. And maybe you guys don't want to share contact information, but if you were willing to share contact information in the form of hard mail addresses or email addresses, we could definitely do a survey and because this is an important issue that I think that people might want to weigh in on. Is there a chance at all of that?
I can circle back with the city administration, gauge their feelings. I'm inclined to believe, though, that they'd be prefer to keep any lists we have in control of the city. And so if there is a feeling for this, a survey, it might be a better suggestion to maybe propose helping design a survey and see how the administration feels about distributing that from the city official channels. So I can
Right.
circle that assignment.
Okay, well, I could certainly, I can sign any kind of non-disclosure agreements needed, but I could also certainly just suggest the question and the method, and then when the data comes in, it's a pretty simple, right? It can just be probably a 1 or 2 question survey, so there's no need for any data even. So, my consulting role would be very small. You guys
Sure.
could probably do this as easily as I could.
Yeah, so let me circle back on that and see where administration is on that.
Because I like the idea. Jeff floated it, and I was wondering about that. And Jeff, I just want to validate that I certainly understand the opt-out problems, right? Reaching people. We think it must be not that hard to reach people these days because we have so many different methods to do so and inform them of their option here. But I totally get that because there's so many methods and there's so much information out there, it's actually harder to reach people in some ways. And what Orem can't even get more than 70% or so of its residents to fill out the census, I think. Which is a pretty important piece of data. Of course, that's more complicated than opting out, but still, I totally get that. But still, I also wonder if the lesson that was learned last time that this opt-out thing happened, I think it was in the context of the fiber optic network stuff. If the lesson that seems to have been learned is don't do opt-out. But I wonder if there might be a more nuanced lesson, which is there might be some better and worse ways to communicate with people. And it is possible to mount a pretty good communications campaign where you reach a lot of people and explain to them what's going on. I don't know, Jeff, I'd be interested in your reaction to that. Do you think that it's just the opt-out system, or do you think that with more effort and a better designed communications strategy, we might actually communicate better with people and let them know what their option is?
Well, I think communication is huge. Okay, so for instance, I just went through in the middle of trying to get word to the people in my ecclesiastical area how to participate in services on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I was blown away how many people in my ward don't have access to a way to participate electronically. And I mean, we just assume that everyone has that ability and you know, we have that option, but I was really quite surprised.
Yeah.
So I think communication is key. I think, you know, people being comfortable with what it is that we're talking about, and that comes through the communication and the education.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about. These are the options. These are the benefits. Lisa didn't really have a downside that I heard. But you know, these are the benefits. These are the blessings. These are the options. And knowing all of this information, what would you be more prone to engage in? You know, what would your preference be?
Okay. That's super helpful, everybody. And, you know, I've kind of allowed this, or, you know, facilitated this taking up most of the hour because I believe it's one of the most important things that we could do and think about. So thank you. And I apologize to other things on the agenda. I think we can get through at least my things very quickly. So, the local farm festival, I did get in touch with Wilkerson's, who are very much in favor, but then I tried contacting some other folks, didn't hear back immediately, and then COVID started ramping up, and then Orem started canceling other activities, and I just thought it's not in the cards for this fall. So we can look at it for the next year. Sarah, I'm so sorry to have shorted you on your very important things. Can you give us an update on your items 3 and 4 there, library collaboration and the legislator open house?
Yeah, the library, I don't have much to say. I've reached out to a professor at BYU who teaches landscape architecture. And so I'll wait to hear back from him. They don't have a program at UVU, so I think that's our best option as far as trying to engage local students. So that's the library issue. And then social media, there was something posted last week, I think, and then we did get another resident story sent in and with some photos, so I will put something together for next week, so that's good. And then the last thing on there, so with the Utah County Sustainability Coalition that I started organizing last spring, so March of 2019, we decided, it was Ben Abbott suggested, he's at BYU, he suggested that we have a meeting where we engage with state legislators and discuss some of the issues that that we're interested, especially considering the projected growth in Utah County. So we're planning to hold that all virtually. We were going to do kind of a split, partially in person, part virtually, but we opted to do the whole thing virtually now, and that will be October 28th from 2 to 3. And I'll do a brief introduction of the coalition and our values that we've discussed in our brainstorming sessions, and how, you know, the challenges that we see, the opportunities that we have to collaborate where it makes sense. And then that will be followed by the keynote speaker, which will be Congressman Curtis. He will talk about, as far as interest in environmental stewardship in general, and also specifically about how he, as a conservative Republican, is working across party lines on bipartisan bills and recognizing that there's a lot of common ground when it comes to environmental issues, and to really find that common ground and build on that and celebrate that together. So that's the main goal here. And then we'll have panelists, a group of 4 of our coalition members from Provo, Lehigh, UVU, and MAG will be represented, and we'll open that up for questions, and hopefully we'll get some questions ahead of time from some of the state legislators, and also city governments, elected officials, and city staff be welcome to join. And as it's virtual, we'll have the capacity for a much larger audience. So I will send out the invitation and the Eventbrite link to you if you want to share that around, or at least just take a look at it, be more aware of what's happening, or if you're able to attend. At the in-person one, the idea originally was to have tables for the various coalition members to kind of highlight what their city or entity is working on. And so I was going to invite our committee to have a display table and talk about some of the things that we're working on and the city of Orem is working on. But we won't be able to have that component to it. But I might try to find a way that we could send information digitally on all of the coalition members. So just wanted to let you know about that. And if you have any questions, let me know.
It's so cool, Sarah. I got really excited as you were talking about that. Who's the right audience member to attend that virtually?
The initial audience members were going to be state legislators and candidates. But now that we're doing all virtual, I'd love to expand it to specifically to people in government, but anybody would be welcome to attend. The conversations that we're having will be more specific to the public sphere and government, but anybody's welcome to attend.
Are the cities, let's say the Utah County cities and their councils, being invited?
Since this was just a recent change, we are now in the process of reaching out and inviting cities and councils. But yeah, so we need to get on that soon since it's 4 weeks from yesterday. But anyway, so we'll keep working on that. And if you know people from other jurisdictions, like if you're good friends with or have a contact with an elected official or city staffer in some other cities, please do let them know. I can go ahead and reach out on behalf of our committee to Orem officials and like city management and whatever. So I can do that, but if you know of some other folks.
That's great, and I'd like to attend if I can. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's so fantastic, Sarah. You're just a beacon of.
I pretend I know what I'm doing.
No, you're a beacon of awesomeness. I'm sticking with the description. Please let us know what we can do. How can we help here? You're an inspiration. That's just fantastic.
Darren started to cry there. I don't know if you noticed that.
A tear came to my eye. Matt or anyone who knows, are there any updates on filling our empty committee seat? We've been seeking applications, I believe, and advertising for it.
Yeah, we've interviewed 2 candidates that applied. I think Kirsten Barnett, and Hillary Hungerford, I believe I'm getting the names correct. And we've interviewed both as candidates, and at this point are going to recommend Hillary Hungerford to the council, I believe, on the 13th, second council meeting of the month. Maybe it's next week. And we suspect that will be approved. Hillary, I would highly recommend her to you. She comes from UVU. She's a professor of geography. She has a background in environmental science. She's working on a grant with Utah Lake and a $300,000 grant to look at options there. And is also, she's looking for opportunities to involve students with Orem City. So again, we felt very comfortable putting for her name forward to the council for this appointment.
That sounds lovely.
It's really exciting.
She's great.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, I second that. She is great.
Oh, you know her, Paul. Good. Okay.
As do I.
Oh, okay. More beacons of awesomeness riding to our rescue. That's great. Well, we've spent our hour plus a little bit. Thank you, everyone, for your excellent participation. And when I interact with my fellow citizens and with city employees and even with politicians, Jeff, I find you all so delightful and so hardworking and honest. And I really appreciate everyone's strong efforts and goodwill. Thank you so much. We need to approve our minutes from last time. Can I get a motion to that effect?
I motion that we approve the minutes from last meeting.
Second.
Oh, I was trying to beat you, Paul.
You can do the
Always.
adjournment.
Paul, please.
Yep. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
Quinn, that's all you.
Oh, I don't think I want to do that.
I'll motion to adjourn.
All second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.
All right. Thank you.
See you soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye.